Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greet the Week. This is Jan Moray, and I have my co-host here, Mona Duncan.
Hello.
We have a couple other guests online today, and the subject today is joy to the world. What a great topic for our last broadcast of 2018 and getting ready for the holiday season. And so Mona, help us talk about how we can make this a joyful time for us.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's so many things going on. There's Christmas and Hanukkah and winter solstice and Kwanzaa and just a lot of different celebrations. And no matter the meaning behind them, whenever you think of the word celebrating, you think of a holiday, you think of time to relax and to enjoy and just to be, just to be. And so I thought, with all of the food to prepare and maybe gifts to give and travel to go, maybe as we can look at a spirit of contentment, and what does it mean to be content? And then how do you gain it? I've had the opportunity this past week to work with some Marines and Navy personnel down at Lackland Air Force Base. And every once in a while, I like to just give what I call a popcorn question. And I'll ask a question and then, just ask everyone in the room to give their response to it. And so I asked the question, what is it that why are you glad to be the age you are? And that was kind of a startling question to most of them.
Right.
I've never thought about being glad to be the age I am. I mean, I'm aging. But as we stop and think about the situation we're in and how we can find something to love about it, something to be glad about it, then that gives a new perspective on it, and we can have more joy, more contentment.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because you think about you wish that you were younger, you wish you didn't have all your aches and pains, you didn't wish you had all this other stuff, but it is good to be at the age we are right now. There is a lot to be grateful for. We have a lot more wisdom than we did when we were more agile.
Well, hopefully that's true.
Well, hopefully so. But there's always so much to be grateful for if you just take the chance to sit and think about it.
Right. And so it's looking for those things to be thankful for. Contentment, what is it? It's the act, it's the art of being content with where you are and in the situation.
It is art. I like that word. It is an art, because it does
take an art
to do it. And,
Right. And in art, sometimes there needs to be some corrections made. You need to make a little erasing, or you need to add a little more color to it or something. But it is an art of being satisfied with where we are at this point of growth. Because everything, sometimes we think about perfection, but yet if anything is perfect, if it's absolutely perfect, then what is still in tow for that perfection is the downside.
mm-hmm.
Whether it is actually a portrait that's on the wall, it's beginning to age and it's beginning to deteriorate. So if we go for perfection, but if we just go for excellence, which is doing the best I can in the moment and with the people and enjoying, find something in it to enjoy and to appreciate.
Yeah, because you just need to open your eyes and look around, and you can find things to appreciate. Find something to be grateful for. Even, I think, in the most dire circumstances, you're going to be happier. You're going to be better off if you can find those little things that you are grateful for and that are going well, instead of putting all your attention to things that aren't going so well.
Right. And I like to look at the fact that anything that appreciates goes up in value.
Yeah, right.
Well, and then I bought a truck back in 1972. It was brand new, right off the lot. And just going around the block, it had depreciated considerably. However, we kept it for years and years and years. Matter of fact, we sold it about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And we got more for it when we sold it than it cost us when we bought it.
Okay.
But the point is that anything that appreciates goes up in value.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it appreciates when we're talking about an artwork or a truck or a house or anything else depends on the name of maintenance and the repair and the value we give it and the way we take care of it. And so we want our lives and all of our holiday expressions and all of our people in our lives, the more we appreciate them and the more gratitude we have for their contribution to the joys of our life, even though there may be a little frustration in there too.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not saying that, that there's not any difficulties. It's saying that in spite of the difficulties.
Right. Right. And sometimes the difficulties end up bringing us together if we can work through them.
Exactly. As we can begin to have more understanding and see where someone else is coming from. I think of John Kasich, I think is the way he pronounces his name, Kralik, that at the beginning of a new year, and he was really down, he was recently divorced and had all financial difficulties and all kinds of things, and he was just out tracking around the world, just trying to decide what he was going to do with his life, and he had this epiphany, and that was nothing in life would ever change if he did not appreciate for what was going on in that particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do not appreciate what we do have, if we do not value it, we will never be, even if we get what we think we want or what we don't have, we won't value it.
Right. Sometimes you have to really work hard to get it, to truly appreciate it.
To truly appreciate it. Yeah, just having it given to us, it's not a big deal because we haven't
the same, right.
We haven't invested anything in it. And so sometimes as we invest that love, that patience, that understanding, or at least trying to understand.
Right.
And then we can see those little bitty glimmers of perceptions matching and being vital and being meaningful. To just continually be content with what we have. So how can we, how can we do that? Well, one thing is to really stop and think, are you really as unhappy as you think you are?
Right.
I know that was a major turnaround in my life personally, was the day that I got the realization that maybe I'm not as unhappy as I'm acting like I am, as I'm thinking I am.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things to be thankful for and to appreciate.
There really are. And there's the little things that happen during the day that frustrate us, and our emotions, we'll feel those emotions where we become angry or we feel frustrated. And then we tend to fall into that trap of thinking, oh, this is so terrible. Things aren't going well. And then it's so easy to forget about the things that are going. That's a challenge that I try to do. It doesn't always work, but whenever I'm feeling those negative emotions, I try to stop and really think, okay, this thing that happened, how important is it? Yes, I'm frustrated about it. I'm unhappy about it. But in the grand scheme of things, how big a deal is it?
Exactly. Do we make it a bigger deal than it has to be?
Yeah.
Whether it's a slight, whether it's a burned pie, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's something more minor or something more major, maybe we make it into a bigger deal than it really is.
Yeah.
That it is a deal. It is a deal.
It is a deal. It is a deal, but not a big deal.
It doesn't have to be a big deal. And the thing of it is even if it is a big deal, it doesn't have to be a deal breaker.
Right.
And I find that a lot whenever I ask someone, well, this is a deal, but is it a deal breaker? And as we begin to realize, well, if it was a deal breaker, then I wouldn't have anybody to fuss with.
Because I like to argue.
Yeah, right. So, okay, maybe it's not a breaker, but I do need a break. And so it's giving yourself a break. Hey, wait a minute here. I need to get some things settled where I can be okay with it, and that it's not necessarily a deal breaker.
And I think that's so easy for something like that to happen, for those kinds of things to happen when during the holidays when you have so many family members around. You have more people around than you normally do, and there's a lot going on, and it's easy to become agitated or irritated just because it's a change from the normal quiet house that from your normal routine, and so you're more apt to be agitated when you have all those people around, and then to understand that you do enjoy having them and you do enjoy having the family, and that there is going to be a little bit of conflict and people are going to be out of their routine, but still to think of what's really important. Is it important that we're together? And so let's appreciate that we're together.
And we're family.
And we are, yeah.
Whether we're born in, married in, whatever, we're family. We're the human family. And it's realizing the fact that they change, and you know what? I don't even recognize them this year from last year. That the kids grow, and they kind of get put off because you talk about how much they grow.
Right, that's right. And so they're
what do you expect?
You told me that you always say that. Why does everybody say that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's realizing that we're just here, and that we are meaningful, and it's appreciating those, and it's engaging in life. It's letting their, and the fact that maybe the grandkids or the nieces and nephews or the whatever, they're not, well, they may not be living up to what someone else's standard would be. But you know what? They're all there together. We're there for a reason and for a, and it's just appreciating one another, that we have an impact on their lives and they have an impact on ours. And it's realizing that it is always easier to change our thoughts than it is to change. And as we change our thoughts about letting something not be so difficult, then it becomes easier to handle the situation.
Yes.
And to be more pleasant, and to, kind of overlook it, as opposed to maybe ignoring something, because ignoring just has an attitude in and of itself, whereas overlooking is like, well, I see it, but I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to.
But just because you ignore it, it's not going to go away.
Exactly.
It's going to come back somewhere else to haunt you later on.
Right.
And so it's overlooking it, kind of the same as just acknowledging it, but choosing not to do anything about it.
Well, it could be. It's just called time. Like someone gives this really outrageous opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
And you just say, okay. Just I acknowledge it. I've heard you. You've spoken, but we're not going there, or I'm not going there.
I don't want to talk about that right now.
Right. And maybe and then change the subject. How about those Cowboys?
Yeah.
Of course, that could get into another
discussion. Well, but then again, I saw something not too long ago about saying that we've been told all the time not to talk about politics and religion and sex, because that always gets into arguments and things like that. But then the question was, well, maybe we should talk about them so that we know how to, because when you keep ignoring those subjects, you don't really learn how to deal with the conflict. And
exactly.
How to keep the discussion going without people becoming upset or turning into an argument, and get people holding grudges and not wanting to come back and visit. But if we can learn how to deal with our differences, knowing that people are going to have different opinions and different ideas, but that's okay, as long as we can talk about it and just get it out there, let our thoughts be known.
Yeah, and be okay with the disagreement.
Right.
Whether we are disagreeing with them or whether they are disagreeing with us.
Yeah.
And voicing that I'm not seeing where you're coming from. I'm not quite understanding that yet. There may be a time I'll see it differently, but it's not right now. But I still value you.
Right, right.
I still, and our relationship, and maybe we can address this again at another time. And then let's just let's enjoy the avenues. Let's enjoy each other in our relationship, and let's enjoy the fact that we now have different directions in which to think about something.
Mm-hmm.
Because all we can ever do is give or receive information.
Right, right.
And then, what is more important, relationship or being right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's an important one that
And if we think being right is the most important, maybe we need to do some deep self-evaluation.
Going back to the taboo topics, I saw something happen a few weeks ago with my husband and in one of his children, and they have different political views. And my husband was talking about his making some points on his side, and his daughter looked at him and said, "Wow, those are really good points that you're bringing up. I never really thought about it that way." Because when you end up talking with all the people who have the same view as you have, you tend to get stuck in that road right there. Whereas if you will listen to the other side, you might hear some things that will open up your view a little bit and help you to understand where they're coming from. And so I think that's important to be able to do those kinds of things, to get that discussion out there and to talk freely.
Right. And then to be more joyful is to take care of yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically. Eat well, sleep well.
Mm-hmm.
Find what your stressors are and eliminate them, decrease them as much as possible.
Right. And one of our guests, Charlotte, writes in there that all the sugar that we eat during this time of year has an impact on our metabolism, and it
sure it does.
To those short fuses. So we're put into an environment where we're more apt to have those arguments. And I guess there's a little alcohol too. I guess that kind of counts in the sugar area.
And the travel.
And the travel and being away from home and
right.
stressors going on that can contribute to those short fuses
and breaking routines.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I like the word that travel and travail. Travel came from the word travail, but they kind of have root words. They're kind of roots there. And certainly that is one of the, road rage and delayed flights and everything else that can contribute to the travail of travel, to the pain.
Could you apply Glasser's 4 psychological needs, belonging, power, freedom, and fun, to this conversation?
To joy?
Belonging, power, freedom, and fun.
Mm-hmm.
I read many years ago, probably 20, 30 years ago, that was one of the cornerstones of his theory. And yet I'm not hearing any of that in today's discussion about happiness and satisfaction and those kinds of things.
Well, joy and fun is joy fun? Is fun joy? Are we joyful when we're having fun?
Probably, yeah.
And then the love and belonging, you're having your family together. You're bringing the family together for the holidays because the family is important to you, and that is one of your needs, to be able to spend time with the people closest to you.
And catch up on news and see what's been going on, and maybe even those in the family that is not there, that they could bring some additional information about them, and so that we can keep in contact and make that connection, make that touch.
Mm-hmm.
What about freedom?
Well, the freedom to go or not to go.
Make that decision whether you're going to attend or not.
Freedom to discuss or not to, or to discuss things.
Yeah,
right.
Freedom of speech is
Freedom of speech, and that freedom of speech includes the freedom not to speak.
Correct. Freedom to be quiet.
Right,
Freedom to
right.
decline to comment.
Yes, yes. Kind of to bite your tongue sometimes, or to speak up sometimes when it needs to be.
Yeah.
And
I think those basic needs are always there, no matter in all parts of your life. You're going through those different needs, and the way you respond has very much to do with what your needs are at that moment.
and those needs are always there, but they do change in keeping with our age. There are some needs that are more, that seem to be more pressing whenever you are tired or sick than are pressing whenever you are not tired and you're well.
Right.
There may be needs that are more pressing, well, especially, with the child that needs to be carried places. And then you get to the other end of the spectrum, and there is the aging person that needs help with walkers or the mobility. And those needs are always there to get around and to be a part of, but the needs change within the society that we live in and with the means of getting from place to place. I mean, there's always change going on. The need itself never changes, but it does. We need to adjust it. We need to make alignment for it. As with the younger generation, their mobility, having the strollers and the carry-alls. And then as we go through life in a certain age, that we can do that mobility on our own. And then as we begin to age and we need help there, some do. And it's realizing that those needs are there, but the situation changes in which we get those needs met and the way in which we get them met.
Yeah, I mean, I think we change as we get older just with having fun. What does fun mean? When you're young, fun, means, one thing, being able to party on the weekends and go out with your friends and stuff. And as you get older, fun is more, well, I can sit and do a puzzle, or I have family come over to the house, or we're just going out to a nice quiet dinner and stuff. But you still have that need for fun, but how you fulfill that need for yourself, it does change.
It does indeed.
As we age.
Right, right. And so, all those other needs change that too, that power need. Mm-hmm. At one time, there may be a big accomplishment need. But then once you get the education, once you're nearing the end of retirement, when you may go back more to the fun need and the love and belonging need as opposed to the power need. But it's still there. It's still there. It never changes. And in looking not only at the need itself, but how much energy do we put into it? We may not be putting as much energy into that power need once you have the financial stability, once you have the reputation, once you have those gadgets that are there to help extend that power. That the energy put into it may not be as great as it was whenever you were building those things or collecting those things, or that has contributed to meeting that need. And so it's to continually go inside and evaluate, and see what adjustments needs to be made in attitude. And then it's also how that society does have an influence on us, whether we want to think that it does or not.
Right, it does.
I mean, there was a time that, someone going to have a child out of wedlock, that was a major issue in the love and belonging, and maybe would even cause a lot of harm and disruption. Right. And now, as a society, as it has become more accepted, and not ever placing right or wrong or on anything, because it's looking at, there's good and the not so good, and there's not so good and what seems to be good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the most delicious thing that's good, organically. I mean, you know, it's just quality stuff. It's not all filled with GMOs and all kinds of things. But even with that, if we eat too much of it, it becomes not so good. So as society changes, then we need to adjust and change. We do adjust and change also. The thing of it is whether we adjust to warring against it, or whether we adjust to adjusting and aligning in keeping with.
Yeah. And I think it also having a difference of perspective in the way you're looking at the situation. You talk about having the child out of wedlock, because here's this baby being born who did nothing, and then there's some family members that don't want anything to do with the baby, and this poor child is missing out because the family members are holding it against the mother for having the baby. But then you got to think of it too. Well, good for the mother for choosing to have the baby.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, at the very beginning, you know, we were talking about there's so many things to think positively about and to find to be grateful for. And so even in something like that, you know, so many years ago, it would not have been accepted. It's shameful for the family, and this poor child ends up suffering from it. But there are a lot of positive things that you can look at.
And that child, regardless of the circumstances, you know, it was conceived in innocence. The child was, and that worth and value of that individual, and it just, you know, yeah. Always go for the good. Always side on the side. Always, you know, if there's an either or, it's always go with life. It's always go with joy. It's always going with what is good for the whole, as opposed to not so good.
Yeah.
And it's those perception errors. It's not the error necessarily in the opinion itself as in our perception to it. Because some things, you know, we go to war on because it's not like it was when I was growing up. And some things we...
They should suffer too, right?
Yeah. And it's just Don Quixote jousting at windmills. And is doing more harm in the long run to all of the relationships, because, you know, Don Quixote, you have worth and value, but, you know, you're just a little crazy there, and still valuing the person for who they are.
Right. Because everybody does have value. It may be a little different from what you had in mind and what you think of, but everybody does have something to contribute.
All right. And so as we begin to, how can I be thankful for this? What is a positive in it? And how is this contributed to my life in the long run? My phone.
Somebody's reaching out to you that looking for love and belonging, right?
Right, exactly.
So
that in getting together for holidays and so forth, there are a multitude of generations there. And so we are looking at the basic needs of fun and power and love and belonging on the scope of the development of each. You know, that biological, that social, that psychological development, and some may be more healthily adjusted than others, or maybe sometimes we expect the children or the youth or to understand more than they're capable right now, than they've experienced, and they have that ability, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes whenever an older relative begins to share things from their point of view and what it was like when they were growing up, all too often we of younger ages, whether we're children or teens or middle age or whatever, may not respect them or may not really want to listen because it's not the way we perceive it.
Right.
And so we're all at those different stages in life, and bringing them together and appreciating and finding joy in different ideas and different perceptions and different inputs can bring us closer together.
It does. When we allow everybody to voice their opinion and talk about the way they see things instead of saying, no, your way is wrong. You don't understand what I'm talking about. That just shuts them off. But everybody has something to give and something to contribute. And this is a great time to sit back and listen to some of the wisdom of us older people, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then we listen to some of the youth, and it's like, oh, I remember those days when when I thought that way too. But it's all part of the learning process. It's all fun. It's great to just enjoy where they are and just go back and say, yeah. I hear you now, but let's hear what you're going to say 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah, and it brings us back to, why am I thankful that I am the age that I am right now?
Right.
Yeah. What is it I love about this particular age in life? And what did I go through in those younger areas of life that helped me to appreciate where I am right now? Yeah. Even more. Well, we're coming down to the end of our time, and I want to, I have a poem that I wrote years ago, and I'd like to share it with all of as my Christmas wish for you. And it's the spirit of Christmas itself. My wish for you, when times are sad or you're unhappy, I wish you the joy of Christmas. In the conflict and the turmoil of life, I wish you the peace of Christmas. When you feel unneeded and unappreciated, I wish for you the love of Christmas. In the down times and the feelings of despair, I wish you the spirit of Christmas. And for all of your todays and all of your tomorrows, I wish for you the Christ of Christmas.
That's very nice to end our broadcast today in the last of the year. So I hope everyone out there enjoys your holidays with family or not. And we'll look forward to the new year. So we will be back on January the 7th, Monday the 7th. And, hopefully we'll have all great stories to tell.
So happy holidays for everyone.
Right. Bye-bye.